Imagine a land before it had a name, a time before the idea of France even existed. This is a journey back through 2,000 years of mist and memory to uncover the origins of a nation that would one day shape the world. We begin in a realm of deep forests and winding rivers, a territory known to the Romans as Gaul. Long before Paris dreamed of its Eiffel Tower, this land belonged to proud and spirited Celtic tribes. The Gauls were a collection of peoples, fierce in battle, skilled in craftsmanship, and deeply connected to the natural world. They built fortified settlements called oppida on hilltops, their wooden walls standing guard over fertile fields. Their warriors, described by the Roman general Julius Caesar, were imposing figures, with long hair, intricate tattoos, and heavy iron torques around their necks. They were blacksmiths, farmers, and druids, their society rich with oral traditions and spiritual beliefs tied to sacred groves and flowing springs. This was a world governed by honor, clan, and the rhythm of the seasons. But the winds of change were blowing from the south. In the 1st century BCE, the might of Rome cast its long shadow over Gaul. Julius Caesar, driven by ambition and military genius, launched a series of campaigns that would forever alter the destiny of this land. The Gallic Wars, lasting nearly a decade, were a brutal and transformative conflict. Despite heroic resistance, led by chieftains like Vercingetorix, who famously united the tribes against the invaders, the superior organization and relentless discipline of the Roman legions ultimately prevailed. By 51 BCE, Gaul was a Roman province. The conquest was not just one of swords and shields, it was a conquest of culture. Over the next 5 centuries, a new Gallo-Roman society emerged. The Romans were master builders and administrators. They crisscrossed the land with their iconic straight roads, connecting distant towns and facilitating trade. They engineered magnificent aqueducts to carry fresh water to burgeoning cities, structures so well built that some, like the Pont de Gare, still stand today. Towns that were once simple Gallic settlements blossomed into centers of Roman life. Lutetia, a small town on an island in the Seine, began its slow transformation into the future Paris. In places like Nimes and Arles, grand amphitheaters were erected, echoing with the roar of crowds watching gladiatorial contests, just as they did in Rome itself. Public baths, temples, and forums became the heart of urban life. The Latin language spread, mingling with Celtic dialects, laying the linguistic foundations for what would one day become French. The Gauls did not simply disappear. They adapted, blending their own traditions with those of their conquerors, creating a unique and vibrant hybrid culture. But empires, no matter how powerful, are not eternal. By the 4th and 5th centuries CE, the Western Roman Empire was crumbling under the weight of internal decay and external pressures. Waves of Germanic peoples migrated across the Rhine and Danube frontiers, seeking new homes and new opportunities. Among these groups were the Franks, a confederation of tribes from the Lower Rhine region. Unlike other groups who merely raided, the Franks began to settle, first as allies of the Romans and later as masters in their own right. From this chaotic period of transition, a remarkable leader emerged, Clovis I. Ascending to the kingship of the Salian Franks in 481, Clovis was a shrewd, ambitious, and ruthless warrior. Through a series of brilliant military campaigns and political maneuvers, he consolidated his power, defeating rival Frankish kings and the last remnants of Roman authority in Gaul. He established the Merovingian dynasty, the first royal house to rule over the Franks. But Clovis's most enduring legacy was not won on the battlefield. It was a spiritual and political masterstroke. His wife, Clotilde, was a devout Christian, and she urged him to convert from his pagan beliefs. Legend holds that during a desperate battle against the Alemanni, Clovis prayed to the Christian god, vowing to be baptized if he was granted victory. The tide of battle turned, and Clovis kept his word. Around the year 496, in the city of Reims, Clovis was baptized into the Catholic Church by Bishop Remigius. This event was monumental. By embracing Catholicism, the faith of the majority of the Gallo-Roman population, rather than the Arian Christianity favored by other Germanic kings, Clovis forged a powerful alliance. He united the Frankish conquerors and the native inhabitants under a single religious banner. This fusion of Frankish military power, Gallo-Roman culture and the authority of the Church created a new kind of kingdom. The baptism of Clovis is often seen as the foundational moment, the symbolic birth of the nation that would one day be called France. In that act, the three essential elements of its early identity were fused together: the Celtic spirit of the Gauls, the law and infrastructure of Rome, and the faith and power of the Germanic Franks. The kingdom of the Franks was born, and from its heart, a new nation began to stir. The land of ancient Gaul had found its new name, and its long, extraordinary story was just beginning. As the sun sets over the Île-de-France, its golden light catches the rising stone of Notre-Dame de Paris. The gentle tolling of bells welcomes us to a time of immense change, an era when a scattered collection of feudal lands began to coalesce into a powerful kingdom. This is the age of kings and cathedrals, when France first embraced the title eldest daughter of the Church. And a new dynasty, the Capetians, started weaving a realm from the threads of loyalty and power. The story of France is written in stone and stained glass. From the 12th century onwards, a new architectural marvel swept across the land, the Gothic cathedral. These weren't just buildings, they were monuments to faith, ambition, and a kingdom reaching for the heavens. Flying buttresses soared, allowing walls to dissolve into vibrant mosaics of light, telling biblical stories to a populace that largely could not read. Each stone was a prayer carved in limestone, each spire a finger pointing towards a divine destiny. This great project of kingdom building found its champion in Louis IX, a king so pious he would later be known as Saint Louis. His reign in the mid-13th century became a benchmark for justice and royal authority. He heard the pleas of his subjects, rich and poor, under an oak tree at Vincennes, establishing a model of kingship that was both divinely ordained and deeply personal. To house the most sacred relics of Christendom, including the crown of thorns, Louis commissioned a jewel box of a chapel in the heart of Paris, Sainte-Chapelle. To step inside is to be bathed in ethereal, colored light, a testament to a king who saw his rule as a sacred duty, a reflection of the celestial kingdom on earth. From the soaring vaults of Amiens to the labyrinthine floors of Chartres, these structures were the physical embodiment of a nation's soul, binding people together in a shared spiritual and cultural enterprise. The Capetian dynasty, through shrewd marriages, strategic warfare, and sheer longevity, laid the foundations of the French state. They transformed the title King of the Franks into the more formidable King of France, asserting their authority over powerful and often rebellious dukes and counts. The royal domain, once a small patch of land around Paris, expanded relentlessly. We see their influence spreading from the bustling markets of Lyon, a crossroads of European trade, to the sun-drenched vineyards of Bordeaux, a land long contested with the English crown. Castles, once simple wooden forts, were rebuilt in stone, their imposing keeps and crenellated walls becoming symbols of royal power projecting across the landscape. The fleur-de-lis, the emblem of the French monarchy, began to appear on banners and coins, a unifying symbol for a diverse and growing population. But this ascent was not without its trials. The 14th century brought famine, plague, and the longest and most devastating conflict in France's history, the 100 Years' War. The English kings, with their own claims to the French throne, repeatedly invaded, winning stunning victories at Crécy and Agincourt. The French crown seemed on the verge of collapse, its armies shattered, its king in question, and its people suffering under the weight of endless war. The land was ravaged, the nobility divided, and the very idea of France appeared to be fading into history, a dream broken on the fields of battle. The future of the kingdom hung precariously in the balance. Then, from the darkness, a light emerged. A young peasant girl from the village of Domremy, claiming to hear the voices of saints, stepped onto the stage of history. Her name was Jeanne d'Arc, Joan of Arc. In an era when women had little to no public voice, her conviction was absolute. She persuaded the beleaguered French heir, the Dauphin Charles, to give her command of his army. In 1429, her standard, emblazoned with the names of Jesus and Mary, was raised against the sky at the besieged city of Orléans. Her presence was electrifying. She inspired a renewed sense of purpose and divine favor in the demoralized French soldiers. the siege was lifted in a matter of days, a victory so miraculous it seemed to confirm her divine mission. Joan's courage turned the tide of the war. Though she would be captured and executed, her sacrifice ignited a fire of national identity. She had shown the French that their cause was not just a feudal dispute between nobles, but a fight for the soul of their homeland. Through fire and sacrifice, the idea of France was reborn, stronger and more unified than ever before. The centuries that followed saw the French monarchy consolidate its power, culminating in the reign of a king who would become the very embodiment of absolute rule. Louis XIV, the Sun King. He transformed his father's hunting lodge at Versailles into the most magnificent palace in Europe, a dazzling symbol of power and prestige. Here, in this gilded cage, the French nobility was tamed, its members vying not for territory, but for the king's favor. Life at court became a highly orchestrated ballet, with Louis at its center, every glance and gesture carrying immense weight. The Hall of Mirrors, with its 17 towering arches reflecting the light from the vast gardens, was designed to awe and intimidate. It declared that the king's glory was boundless, his power a reflection of God's own. The geometric precision of the gardens, designed by André Le Nôtre, extended this theme of control, taming nature itself to serve the monarch's vision. This was the zenith of French royal splendor. Art, music, and theater flourished under the king's patronage, with figures like Molière and Lully defining the cultural landscape of the age. French became the language of diplomacy and high society across Europe, and the style of Versailles was emulated by monarchs everywhere. The kingdom was a dominant force, its armies formidable, its culture preeminent. Yet even here, in the shimmering play of sunlight and shadow, one can feel a certain fragility. The immense cost of Versailles and of Louis's incessant wars placed a heavy burden on the French people. The world of the crown, so golden and seemingly eternal, was a dream built on foundations that were beginning to show signs of strain. The splendor of the Sun King's reign cast long shadows, and within them, the seeds of revolution were quietly beginning to grow, heralding the end of one era and the violent, uncertain birth of another. From the first stones of Notre Dame to the mirrored halls of Versailles, the story of the French crown is a grand tapestry of faith, ambition, conflict, and genius. It is the story of how a kingdom was forged, lost, and reborn, leaving behind a legacy of cathedrals that still inspire awe and a vision of splendor that continues to capture the imagination. In the quiet hum of a Parisian café, where morning light spills across worn wooden tables, a story unfolds. It's a story told not in grand pronouncements, but in the clink of a cup, the rising steam from an espresso, the rustle of a well-loved book. This is where you find it, the French art of living, l'art de vivre. It's an alchemy of faith, philosophy, and daily ritual. Watch closely. See how a simple baguette is broken with intention, cheese is sliced with care, and wine is poured with a reverence that transforms a meal from mere sustenance into a sacrament of community. These are not just actions, they are gestures steeped in centuries of meaning. Our journey takes us back, gliding through time to the solemn cloisters of medieval monasteries. Here, in the flickering candlelight, the air is thick with the scent of old stone and incense. The unified chant of monks rises, a wave of sound that seeks to touch the divine. Their devotion wasn't just confined to prayer, it was woven into the very fabric of their lives. In the illuminated manuscripts they painstakingly created, the herbs they cultivated in their gardens, and the wine they perfected in their cellars. Faith was the bedrock of society, a rigid, hierarchical structure that gave order to the world, from the king on his throne to the peasant in the field. The cathedral, with its soaring spires reaching for heaven, was the ultimate expression of this collective belief, a testament to a world where the sacred and the profane were inextricably linked. Then, a shift. The air crackles with new ideas as we enter the dazzling salons of the 17th and 18th centuries. The light is warmer now, golden, reflecting off powdered wigs and crystal chandeliers. The hushed tones of the monastery give way to a crescendo of debate. Here, philosophy becomes a weapon. Listen to the sharp wit of Voltaire, his words slicing through dogma and challenging the authority of both kings and bishops. Hear the passionate arguments of Rousseau, who championed the sovereignty of the people and questioned the very foundations of civilization. We witness Diderot, surrounded by towering stacks of paper, on his audacious mission to compile all human knowledge into his encyclopédie, a radical act of democratizing information, of placing reason on a pedestal once reserved for faith alone. This was the age of enlightenment, a profound intellectual revolution that would not be contained within the gilded walls of the salon. Outside, in the narrow winding streets of Paris, a different philosophy was being written. A philosophy of hunger, injustice, and simmering discontent, whispered in bakeries over the rising price of bread and in taverns over shared grievances. The ideas of the salons had lit a fuse, and it was only a matter of time before the explosion. The revolution came, and with it, a new France. We move forward to the 19th century, into the ateliers of Montmartre and along the banks of the Seine. The air is misty, filled with the scent of oil paint and turpentine. Here, a different kind of rebellion is taking place, an artistic one. We stand beside Monet at Giverny, his eyes darting, his brush flying across the canvas, desperately trying to capture the fleeting dance of light on his water lily pond. We find ourselves in the boisterous, joyful crowd at the Moulin de la Galette, immortalized by Renoir, feeling the warmth of the sun filtering through the acacia trees. We're in the shadows of a rehearsal room, silent observers as Degas sketches the powerful, disciplined forms of his ballet dancers, capturing not the polished performance, but the exhaustion and grit behind the scenes. This was Impressionism. It was a radical break from the Academy, a new way of seeing. These artists rejected the grand historical and religious subjects of the past. Instead, they found their subjects in the everyday, a bustling train station, a family picnic, a moment of quiet contemplation. They taught the world that beauty wasn't just in the monumental, but in the momentary. Their philosophy was visual, to capture the immediate sensation, the impression of a single, unrepeatable instant, and, in doing so, to make it eternal. But the French art of living is not confined to the intellectual ferment of Paris. To truly understand it, we must journey into the provinces, into the heartland of France. The camera sweeps over a bustling market in Provence, the air fragrant with lavender, ripe tomatoes, and pungent goat cheese. We feel the salty spray of the Atlantic as Breton fishermen, their faces weathered by the elements, mend their nets with calloused hands. We take a seat at a long wooden table on a Sunday afternoon, surrounded by generations of a family, sharing a meal. A pot-au-feu simmering for hours, laughter echoing, stories being passed down. These scenes are scored by the rhythmic tolling of Catholic church bells, a sound that has marked the hours and seasons for 1,000 years. And yet, this is also the era of laicite, of a fierce, state-mandated secularism. France was, and is, in a constant state of negotiation. Between the Church and the Republic, between deeply rooted local traditions and a powerful centralized state, between the old ways and the relentless march of modernity. This tension, this dialogue between opposing forces, is not a sign of weakness, but a source of France's dynamic and enduring culture. Through every frame, from the scholar's study to the painter's easel, from the grand cathedral to the humble kitchen table, we feel an unshakable conviction. It is the belief that life is not something to be passively endured, but to be actively engaged with. It is to be tasted, questioned, argued over, and above all, celebrated. The French spirit isn't just found in its iconic monuments or its revolutionary history. It is found in the way a conversation is allowed to linger long after the coffee has gone cold. It's in the deliberate, unhurried ritual of a shared meal. And it's in the restless intellectual curiosity that pushes a thought just a little further. Always striving, always searching for that elusive union of truth and beauty. France. A name that conjures images of art, philosophy, and fine living. But beneath this veneer of culture lies a story forged in fire, a history of revolution, empire, and devastating war. It is a tale of a nation perpetually reinventing itself, rising from its own ashes, stronger and more defiant each time. This is the story of how modern France was born, not in quiet halls of debate, but in the crucible of conflict. Our journey begins in Paris, 1789. The air crackles with tension, thick as the storm clouds gathering over the city. Below, in the labyrinthine streets, a tide of humanity surges. Their faces, a mixture of anger and desperate hope, are illuminated by flickering torchlight. They are the disenfranchised, the hungry, the forgotten people of France, and they are marching on the Bastille, a grim symbol of royal tyranny. When its walls crumble, it is more than stone that falls. An entire world order, the Ancien Regime, collapses with it. The cry of liberté, égalité, fraternité, liberty, equality, fraternity, echoes from the streets of Paris and shakes the thrones of Europe. The French Revolution has begun, but revolutions are seldom clean. The initial idealism soon gives way to paranoia and bloodshed. The reign of terror descends, its symbol the guillotine, its silhouette a stark and chilling reminder of how quickly dreams can curdle into nightmares. France, having beheaded its king, now seems to be devouring its own children. The nation is in chaos, its future uncertain, vulnerable to enemies both within and without. It is in this vacuum of power that a figure of extraordinary ambition and military genius emerges. A young Corsican artillery officer named Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon is a whirlwind, a force of nature. He seizes control of the revolutionary government, promising stability and glory, and he delivers. His Grande Armée, a marvel of modern warfare, sweeps across the continent. We see them crossing the treacherous Alps, their bayonets gleaming in the cold mountain sun, an unstoppable blue tide. Napoleon redraws the map of Europe, installing his family on ancient thrones and spreading the revolutionary ideals of legal reform and civic rights, albeit at the point of a sword. For a decade, he is the master of Europe. The French Empire stretches from Spain to Poland. But such ambition has a price. The disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812 decimates his legendary army. A coalition of European powers, sensing weakness, unites against him. The dream of a permanent French empire dies in the mud and rain of a Belgian field in 1815. Waterloo. Napoleon is exiled, his empire dismantled, yet something profound has changed forever. The idea of the nation-state, of a people bound by a common identity and a shared set of laws, has taken root. The citizen has replaced the subject. The seeds of modern Europe have been sown. A century passes. A fragile peace holds, but the old rivalries fester. In the summer of 1914, the intricate web of alliances finally snaps, and Europe plunges into the abyss. This is a new kind of war, an industrial slaughter on an unimaginable scale. On the fields of northern France, the landscape is transformed into a hellscape of trenches, barbed wire, and shell craters. The names of the battles become synonymous with carnage: the Marne, the Somme, Verdun. Here, millions of men are fed into a relentless meat grinder. The war to end all wars bleeds France white, leaving a generation of its young men in the soil. Entire villages are wiped off the map. Cathedrals are left as hollowed-out skeletons. By 1918, the guns fall silent. France is victorious, but at a cost that scars its very soul. The nation mourns its 1.4 million dead, a loss from which it will never fully recover. Yet, with a resilience that defines its character, France begins to rebuild, stone by painstaking stone, determined to honor its dead by living once more. This hard-won peace is tragically brief. Just 2 decades later, the storm gathers again. In 1940, the nightmare returns. The German blitzkrieg slices through French defenses with terrifying speed. In a matter of weeks, France, the great military power of Europe, is defeated. The ultimate humiliation comes as German troops march triumphantly down the Champs-Élysées under the Arc de Triomphe, a monument built to celebrate Napoleon's victories. Paris, the city of light, is plunged into darkness. The government capitulates, and the nation is occupied. It is France's darkest hour, but even in total defeat, the flame of resistance is not extinguished. From a radio studio in London, a solitary voice cuts through the static. It belongs to an obscure general, Charles de Gaulle. He declares that France has lost a battle, but has not lost the war. His broadcast is a call to arms, a rallying cry for all who refuse to accept defeat. His call is answered. Across France, an underground army forms, the resistance. They are ordinary men and women, teachers, farmers, priests, students, who choose to fight back. They operate in the shadows, their actions small but courageous. They sabotage railways, pass secret intelligence, hide Allied airmen, and publish clandestine newspapers. They risk torture and summary execution for a future they might not live to see. Their defiance keeps the hope of liberation alive. Then, in June 1944, the Allies land in Normandy. After months of brutal fighting, the road to Paris is open. In August, as Allied armies approach, the people of Paris rise up themselves. Barricades appear in the streets, just as they had in 1789. The tricolour flag, banned for 4 years, is defiantly flown from rooftops. After days of fierce street fighting, French and Allied soldiers enter the city. The bells of Notre Dame ring out, joined by the chorus of every church bell in Paris, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. Paris is free. From the fall of the Bastille to the liberation of Paris, the story of France is one of violent transformation. It is a nation forged in the fires of revolution, tempered by the ambition of empire, and tested in the crucible of 2 world wars. It has been wounded, broken, and occupied, but never truly defeated. Each time it has fallen, it has risen again, its identity sharpened, its spirit unbroken. The tricolour, a symbol born in revolution, a flag that has flown over victories and defeats across the globe, continues to fly. It represents a nation that has endured the unimaginable, a people whose history is a testament to the enduring power of liberty, and a spirit that will forever refuse to surrender. The first dawn breaks over a liberated Paris. The air, once thick with the smoke of conflict, now carries a fragile sense of hope. Rubble still scars the familiar streets, a stark reminder of the long years of occupation and war. But along the Seine, life begins to stir. The river flows on, its surface catching the new light, mirroring a city slowly awakening from a nightmare. Parisians, weary but resilient, reclaim their beloved cafés. The quiet clinking of cups, the murmur of conversations. These are the first sounds of peace. Near the steadfast silhouette of Notre Dame, children laugh and chase pigeons, their innocence a beacon in the slowly healing city. A nation, bruised but unbroken, is stitching itself back together, thread by fragile thread. This monumental task of reconstruction fell to a generation of leaders who had guided France through its darkest hours. At the forefront was Charles de Gaulle, a figure of immense stature and unwavering resolve. His vision was to forge a new France, one that could rise from the ashes of defeat and reclaim its place on the world stage. The political landscape was a fractured mess, a legacy of the unstable Third Republic and the collaborationist Vichy regime. The first step was to create a new framework for governance. This led to the birth of the Fourth Republic in 1946. It was an attempt to restore parliamentary democracy, but it was plagued by ministerial instability and deep political divisions, struggling to cope with the immense pressures of decolonization, particularly the brutal war in Algeria. By 1958, the Fourth Republic was on the brink of collapse, and France turned once again to de Gaulle. He returned to power with a mandate to draft a new constitution, one that would provide the stability the nation so desperately needed. The result was the Fifth Republic, a system that dramatically strengthened the role of the president, creating a powerful executive to guide the country with a steady hand. This new republic aimed to balance presidential authority with a functioning parliament, ending the chronic political paralysis of the past. It was a bold redefinition of French political life, a search for a durable equilibrium after decades of turmoil and upheaval. This new political foundation would be the bedrock upon which modern France was built. With political stability came an unprecedented economic explosion. The period from roughly 1945 to 1975 would later be dubbed Les 30 Glorieuses, the 30 glorious years. It was an era of breathtaking growth and modernization that transformed the face of the nation. Factories, silent during the war, roared back to life, their chimneys symbols of a renewed industrial might. Across the country, vast construction projects reshaped the landscape. New apartment blocks rose from the ground, providing modern housing for a growing population and replacing the dwellings destroyed in the war. The government poured resources into infrastructure, recognizing that to build a modern economy, you first had to build the connections. Perhaps no symbol of this forward momentum is more powerful than the train à grande vitesse, the TGV. As the first lines began to be laid, they carved high-speed paths across the ancient countryside, stitching together cities and regions like never before. These sleek, futuristic trains, slicing through golden fields of wheat, became an emblem of the new France. A nation racing into the future, propelled by technology and ambition, yet still deeply connected to its rich agricultural roots. This was a country that honored its past while embracing progress, a dynamic fusion of tradition and innovation. The Trente Glorieuses didn't just rebuild France, they reimagined it as a modern, prosperous, and confident nation. While the economy boomed, Paris was undergoing a cultural revolution of its own. The city, long the world's artistic heart, once again became a crucible of new ideas. A rebellious energy coursed through its streets, challenging old norms and giving birth to new forms of expression. On the grand boulevards like the Champs-Élysées, neon signs reflected on rain-slicked pavement, painting the city in vibrant, modern hues. This was the backdrop for one of the most significant movements in film history, the Nouvelle Vague, or the New Wave. In darkened cinemas, young directors like François Truffaut and Jean-Luc Godard captivated audiences with their radical approach to storytelling. They threw out the rulebook, using handheld cameras, jump cuts, and naturalistic dialogue to capture the restlessness and alienation of contemporary youth. Their films weren't just entertainment, they were manifestos, holding a mirror up to a society in flux. But this cultural ferment was not confined to the screen. In May of 1968, it exploded onto the streets. Students, frustrated with the rigid, traditional university system and the conservative government, occupied the Sorbonne. The Latin Quarter became a battleground. Cobblestones, pried from the streets, became projectiles. Walls bloomed with vibrant, provocative posters, their slogans like, "It is forbidden to forbid," becoming the rallying cries of a generation. France was once again debating its core values, authority, tradition, and freedom. But this time, the revolution was televised, with cameras and microphones capturing every dramatic moment for the world to see. As France redefined itself internally, it also turned its gaze outward, seeking a new role in a changing Europe. The devastating experience of 2 world wars had convinced many of its leaders that the only path to lasting peace was through cooperation, not conflict. French statesmen like Robert Schuman and Jean Monnet were the architects of this new vision. They proposed pooling key industrial resources, like coal and steel, under a common authority, making war between historic rivals like France and Germany not merely unthinkable, but materially impossible. This revolutionary idea laid the groundwork for what would become the European Union. France became a driving force in this ambitious project. We see its diplomats and leaders in Brussels and Strasbourg, their voices helping to shape the institutions and policies that would bind the continent together. The European project was more than just an economic alliance. It was a political and cultural endeavor. French language, legal traditions, and republican values were woven into the very fabric of the emerging European community. By championing a united Europe, France found a way to amplify its influence, transforming from a former imperial power into a central pillar of a new, collaborative continental order. The story of modern France is also a story of migration. Following the war and throughout the decades of economic growth, the country opened its doors to waves of immigrants seeking work and a new life. They came from across the globe, but particularly from France's former colonies in North and West Africa, as well as from Southeast Asia. This migration fundamentally reshaped the nation's social and cultural landscape. The suburbs of major cities, the banlieues and diverse urban neighborhoods became vibrant melting pots. The frame of what it meant to be French began to widen, becoming more inclusive and more complex. Walk through a modern French city, and you'll find bustling North African markets, their stalls overflowing with spices, olives, and mint tea. You'll hear the infectious rhythms of West African music drifting from a storefront. and see the bright lights of Asian restaurants and shops. This influx of new peoples brought new cuisines, new sounds, new faiths, and new perspectives. Modern France has emerged as a rich and dynamic mosaic. It is a society that is sometimes conflicted, grappling with questions of identity, integration, and secularism. It is often noisy, filled with passionate debate and diverse voices, but it is, above all, undeniably alive. A nation constantly in the process of rewriting itself, negotiating its past, and forging a new, multifaceted identity for the 21st century. From the quiet dawn of liberation to the bustling, multicultural nation of today, the journey of modern France has been one of profound transformation. It's a story of rebuilding from ruins, of bold political reinvention, and of a relentless creative spirit. It is the story of a nation that learned to look both inward to heal its wounds and outward to build a new future with its neighbors. It is a testament to the resilience of a people who, time and again, have shown the capacity to question, to debate, and to reinvent themselves, forever shaping what it means to be French, France. The name itself is a whisper of history, a promise of beauty. For centuries, it has been the heart of an empire, a cradle of revolution, a battlefield of nations. But what is France today? Beyond the grand narratives of kings and conquests, what story does this land tell now? We begin where so many stories of France do, in Paris, as the sun performs its final, glorious act. The Eiffel Tower, a familiar silhouette, stands against a sky washed in rose and gold. Below, the river Seine glimmers, a ribbon of light guiding us through the awakening city. Street lamps flicker to life, one by one, casting a warm glow on ancient stone. We drift past the Louvre, its modern pyramid a jewel set in the crown of a former palace. We see lovers on the Pont des Arts, their hopes immortalized not by locks, but by a shared moment in the twilight. We hear the haunting melody of a cello echoing under a vaulted bridge, a soundtrack to the city's eternal romance. This is the Paris of postcards, yes, but it is also a living, breathing entity, its heart beating in rhythm with the millions who call it home. But the story of France does not belong to Paris alone. As morning mist rises, it reveals a different France, one of quiet grandeur and raw, natural beauty. In Bordeaux, vineyards stretch to the horizon, each grape glistening with dew, holding the promise of a future vintage. In Provence, endless fields of lavender ripple in a gentle breeze, their fragrance carried on the warm air. Far to the east, the snow-dusted peaks of the Alps pierce a crisp, blue sky, their silent majesty a stark contrast to the bustling capital. This is a land of profound contrasts. On the rugged coast of Brittany, fishermen brace against the harsh Atlantic wind, their faces etched with the stories of the sea. Further south, on the Basque coast, surfers dance with powerful waves, a modern ritual on an ancient shoreline. And scattered throughout the heartland, quiet villages of weathered stone seem to stand outside of time itself, their rhythms dictated by the sun and the seasons. France, once a kingdom defined by its borders, is now a tapestry of diverse landscapes. Each one an open invitation to the traveler to slow down, to wander, to simply be. To truly understand France, one must taste it. We step into a bustling morning market, a sensory explosion of color and life. Pyramids of sun-ripened tomatoes, wheels of artisanal cheese, glistening olives, and crusty, golden brown breads create a vibrant mosaic. Here, food is not mere sustenance. It is culture, it is community, it is an art form celebrated daily. In the intimate warmth of a neighborhood bistro, a chef stirs a gleaming copper pot, transforming simple ingredients into something sublime. The air is thick with the scent of butter, garlic, and wine, the very essence of French home cooking. At the other end of the spectrum, in the hallowed halls of Michelin-starred restaurants, cuisine transcends to high art. Plates are not just served, they are composed. Each element is placed with the precision of a painter, creating a masterpiece for the palate. This reverence for craft extends beyond the kitchen. On the glittering runways of Paris Fashion Week, the world looks to France for what is next. But true style also lives in the backstreets, where young designers, armed with thrifted cloth and audacious ideas, are deconstructing and reinventing fashion. proving that creativity is the nation's most renewable resource. Modern France is a study in juxtaposition. It is a nation that fiercely guards its heritage while hurtling into the future. In the gleaming glass towers of La Défense, a new generation of entrepreneurs and innovators is building a digital France, their ambitions as towering as the skyscrapers they work in. High-speed internet, once the preserve of cities, now connects remote mountain villages to the global conversation. Artists in cramped Parisian apartments stream their music to a worldwide audience, their voices echoing far beyond their four walls. And yet, for all this forward momentum, the old rituals persist with a stubborn, beautiful grace. The glow of smartphones may illuminate cafe tables, but they have not replaced the art of conversation, the unhurried coffee, the shared bottle of wine, the passionate, unending debates about politics, art, and the meaning of life itself. These are the pillars of French society. It is this unique ability to embrace the new without abandoning the old that defines the French spirit. It's a delicate dance between tradition and innovation, a balancing act performed with an air of effortless elegance. As night deepens over the land, we pull back, ascending into the darkness for one final sweeping view. The entire country glows softly below, a constellation of light stretching from the glamorous shores of the Riviera to the historic cliffs of Normandy. Every light represents a story, a life, a dream. France, we come to understand, is not just a place on a map. It is more than its monuments, its history, or its landscapes. It is a feeling. It is the particular quality of light on ancient stone. It is the taste of a fresh croissant on a bustling street corner. It is the sound of conversation and laughter spilling from a cafe late into the night. It is a complex blend of resilience and romance, of pride and passion, woven together through centuries of turmoil and triumph. A timeless nation, forever captivating the world, still writing its story, one golden moment at a time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey, please like and subscribe for more stories from around our world.